Cetaceans have lived on this planet for millions of years and are littered throughout the marine ecosystems. There are so many different types of cetaceans that live in different oceans, varying of whales and dolphins. Taxonomy of cetaceans ranges from the smallest to the largest of whales. Hector dolphins are the smallest cetacean in the ocean, and the blue whale being the largest.
Cetaceans navigate their way through the deepest oceans and travel extremely long distances on migration for feeding and breeding. Survival of cetaceans depends on their ability to use echolocation, which allows them to sense direction and communicate to potential partners or pod members. The main issue surrounding underwater noise pollution is due to increased shipping activity and various types of testing. This is having a major effect on cetaceans as the ocean is an acoustic environment where sensitivity to sound is an advantage. However, this means disturbing and harmful foreign sounds also affect them negatively. Let's dive into our first noise pollution issue.
Let's say we have 440 is like the middle key, of your piano or whatever.
That's John Hildebrand. He's a professor at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. He's an expert in the field of underwater sound and how it's used by and how it affects marine mammals.
If you looked at the wavelength of that sound in air, that note, the 440 note, would be a little bit less than a meter long. In water, it's more like several meters long.
What that means is that noise travels about 4 times faster and farther in water than it does in air. In an experiment in 1991, sound emitted from Heard Island was picked up at 16 sites in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Ocean.
What you're about to hear is the sound of a ship's motor recorded in a shipping channel.
Sounds travelling great distances from ships, which at given time there can be approximately 60,000 roaming the world's oceans at once.
The overwhelming density of shipping movements across the world creates intense underwater sound disturbances, like an acoustic smog, which is produced by the ship's motor and propeller. Sometimes these sounds are so frequent that species who rely on communication across vast oceans are unable to navigate and find mates. For the whale species who can navigate their way through areas where shipping is not as dense, another man-made device is proving to further challenge their survival. Seismic surveying. This testing can go on for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Seismic blasting is conducted by oil companies who survey the ocean floor in search of oil deposits under the seabed. Air guns produce an explosion of sound which then penetrate the seafloor and relay data back to receptors, which give an indication of potential oil drilling locations. Every blast is louder than a space shuttle taking off, and at 259 decibels per blast, it's enough to kill a human. Seismic surveying has proven to cause hearing loss, abandonment of habitat, disruption of mating and feeding, beach strandings, and even death for whales, sea lions, dolphins, turtles, and other marine wildlife. This is a major issue for species who rely on sound to mate, feed, communicate, and survive. Sonar is transmission equipment used by ships for navigation assistance. Sonar produced by man is very similar to the way cetaceans use sonar. Like an echo, sonar produced by ships is radiated in many directions. When an object is present, the sound bounces off that object and is returned to the ship. This is detrimental to the health and survival of some cetaceans. Basic biological functions such as mating, communicating, and feeding is disrupted by sonar. In a study spanning just 10 years, over 300 cetaceans stranded themselves to escape these intense underwater sounds. We know that military sonar is linked to mass lethal strandings of deep-diving toothed whales such as the longfin pilot whale seen here. Scientific theory on such mass strandings is pointing the finger at underwater sound pollution. These highly acoustic tuned mammals are extremely sensitive to sound. After all, in the vast ocean, it's their major survival sense. This unfortunately is their downfall given the expanding shipping and seismic surveying industry.
One instance for all of this noise pollution in WA, there was a mass stranding of 150 whales.
Baleen whales are also affected by foreign sounds polluting their underwater environment. A study undertaken on the endangered blue whale demonstrated that mid-frequency sounds significantly affected the blue whale's behaviour. Noted responses to these sounds included abandonment of a deep feeding dive to increased speed in a direction away from the sound. Shipping traffic, seismic surveying, and sonar disruptions have contributed to displacement from high-quality prey patches in baleen whales. This could have significant ramifications on baleen whales' foraging ecology, population health, and individual fitness. So where to now? The future, given oceanic noise pollution's current status, looks grim. In a study published in Frontiers in Ecology and the Environment, researchers state that immediate action needs to be taken to address the current excessive ocean noise from industrial activities. Currently, in many places around the world, seismic surveyors must slowly build up the strength and intensity of air guns used. However, it's immeasurable on how effective this practice is. Other steps currently taken include limiting operations in an area where endangered animals are known to occupy. Sometimes the seismic surveyors must shut down if an animal enters a certain zone. However, the overall effectiveness of these strategies are unknown. It is suggested by experts at the Duke University Marine Laboratory in Beaufort, North Carolina, and the Wildlife Conservation Society in New York City that more data needs to be collected on marine mammals and where exactly they breed, spawn, and feed. This information could help oil companies decide when and where to survey and check after for unforeseen outcomes. As for reducing overall noises, experts are calling for noise limits based on information that accounts for cumulative contributions to noise. The Australian Ocean Data Network portal is one of the good sources for this kind of data collection. In Europe, they have proposed putting limits on overall noise. However, the United States doesn't consider the impacts at all when giving out survey permits. New techniques which incorporate steady streams of energy at lower levels than air guns may assist in reducing the overall impacts and risks to marine species.
She speaks like the rain, but she holds the moon. She runs like the sun.
Ships make a lot of noise by their propellers, engine noise. Offshore oil and gas is found using air guns, and we're working on ways of reducing the noise and reducing the impact of that noise. And finally, we're working on outboard engine noise to try and think about how that affects local fish communities, particularly in coral reef environments where that noise affects reproduction. To make sure that our science really gets fed into policy, we meet regularly with DEFRA, with CFAS, the government scientists, Marine Scotland, and also international organisations like the International Maritime Organisation that governs shipping, to try and ensure that the decisions they make, the policy decisions as well as licensing decisions about where to put new wind farms or where to move shipping lanes, is really informed by the latest evidence on how noise can affect fish and marine invertebrates.
Noise criteria needs to be continually revised to make sure that the noise is a renewable source in survival and the longevity of marine animals and ecosystems.
Recommended changes to further reduce the marine noise pollution. As with other forms of pollution, reduction at the source is the most effective approach to reducing impacts. Governments increase strict noise level policy standards for all noise producing activities to help make change in the ever so increasing noise pollution. Longer term studies to provide in-depth research to further our knowledge and understanding the impacts of marine noise pollution.
Regulators and project proponents should establish communication with conservation organisations to further educate and communicate best possible outcomes for the future.
I'm so tired of this place, and I want